Watch this, guys. Now, this is when Canada tripped herself, and Caitlin Clark was literally bagging back, giving her room to go because she was already at, what, 4 fouls or something like that. 4 fouls. Now what?
Take another close look at that sequence. Caitlin Clark isn't merely asking for a challenge. She's actively pointing toward the screen, breaking down exactly what happened, and desperately trying to convince her coach to review the play. Yet while Clark is making her case, Stephanie White doesn't even appear to acknowledge her. That brief 30-second interaction reveals far more than most people realize about the current situation in Indiana. The most concerning part is that this wasn't an isolated incident or a rare misunderstanding on the sidelines. Instead, it has become a recurring pattern that fans have witnessed throughout the entire season. To make matters worse, Stephanie White ended up using a valuable challenge on Sophie Cunningham, while several questionable moments involving Caitlin Clark went completely unreviewed. In my view, the decision not to use a single challenge to support Clark during crucial situations played a major role in the outcome, and it's one of the biggest reasons the Fever ultimately walked away with a disappointing loss.
Stephanie White wasted a challenge on Sophie Cunningham. To me, her not using any challenges for Caitlin Clark completely is the reason why they lost this game. Caitlin Clark did not play majority of the fourth quarter. She came in, there's 3 minutes and 28 seconds left. She got in foul trouble early. I think she had 3 fouls going into the third quarter. So that there was a telltale sign that, maybe I need to keep a challenge because they clearly...
What makes this loss even more frustrating is that the Indiana Fever didn't just fall to the Atlanta Dream. They also saw their 4-game winning streak come to an abrupt end. But the real story goes far beyond what shows up in the box score. Caitlin Clark spent most of the fourth quarter glued to the bench and didn't return until there were only 3 minutes and 28 seconds remaining in the game. The reason was foul trouble. She entered the second half carrying her 3rd foul and was later hit with a highly questionable 4th foul that completely changed the rotation. As a result, Indiana's most impactful player was forced to watch from the sidelines while momentum slowly shifted away from the Fever. What makes the situation even harder for fans to accept is that Stephanie White still had a challenge available. There were multiple opportunities to review the calls that put Clark in foul trouble, yet none of them were challenged. Instead, the coaching staff chose to use that valuable review on Sophie Cunningham rather than protecting their franchise star in a crucial stretch of the game. For many Fever supporters, that decision remains one of the biggest turning points in a game that ultimately slipped out of Indiana's hands.
Well, that kind of answers the question earlier about that challenge that you asked, because
I just wasn't a fan of it at that time for a play that to us at the time. I mean, think about how long that review went.
Yeah,
you know, it wasn't cut and dry, and now you've got one of your best players sitting on the bench with 5 personals.
Even the announcers.
What made the situation even more noticeable was that the broadcast team began questioning the coaching decisions in real time, something that rarely happens during a game unless the issue is impossible to overlook. When commentators are openly discussing whether the head coach should have challenged a call, it usually means the decision has become a major talking point. The crucial moment came with just 52 seconds remaining in the first half. Caitlin Clark was already dealing with 3 fouls when Alicia Gray appeared to lose her footing and go down on the play. From that angle, Clark seemed to be retreating on defense with little to no involvement in the contact, yet the whistle still sounded and she was suddenly charged with another foul. That was the exact type of situation where a challenge could have changed everything. Protecting your star player from picking up a potentially game-changing foul should have been the priority. However, by that point the Fever no longer had that option available because Stephanie White had already used her challenge earlier on a play that many viewed as far less significant. As a result, when the most critical review opportunity arrived, Indiana was left with no way to contest the call, and the consequences carried over into the remainder of the game.
Starting during her last years in Iowa, Caitlin Clark seemed destined to follow a similar journey to icon status. Her start to her WNBA career has already been record-setting. The only thing she was lacking, though, was that long-awaited signature shoe. Well, guess what? It dropped today. Check out Nike's Caitlin 1. And you see those stacked swooshes over there? You see how they're look like C's? Well, Nike says they were designed to mimic her initials, which you see up on the tongue, and then even the nose on the outside also look like C's. Now, Clark becomes the 5th active WNBA player with her.
Adding even more attention to the controversy, Sports Illustrated recently highlighted the issue in an article that directly examined Stephanie White's handling of challenge decisions involving Caitlin Clark. The piece, written by Robin Lundberg, argued that coaching a player of Clark's stature comes with added responsibilities and that repeatedly passing on opportunities to challenge questionable calls has become impossible to ignore. This wasn't criticism coming from a random social media account or an isolated fan opinion. It came from one of the most recognized names in sports media. The article reportedly detailed several moments throughout the season where White had clear chances to contest foul calls against Clark, but elected not to use her challenge. More importantly, those situations weren't limited to a single game or one frustrating night. According to the analysis, similar decisions have surfaced repeatedly across multiple matchups, creating a trend that many fans and observers have begun to notice. At this point, the discussion is no longer centered on one missed review, but on a growing pattern of coaching decisions that continue to raise questions about how the Fever are managing crucial moments involving their franchise player.
Not be able to buy them until October. Michael Jordan.
So that was ESPN letting us know that Caitlin Clark is one of them ones. Now, this is a controversial person right here. A lot of people don't like him. Even me, I don't really care for him, but he do make good articles for Sports Illustrated. That is Robin Lundberg. So Robin Lundberg is getting off the bandwagon, and he wrote an article today. He says, coaching Caitlin Clark come with challenges. Stephanie White can't hold to them. Indiana Fever coach Stephanie White could stand to use some of her challenges on the calls made against who? Caitlin Clark.
When you look at the situation from a strategic perspective, the frustration becomes even easier to understand. Throughout the season, there has been constant debate surrounding the way Caitlin Clark is officiated, with many observers believing she often receives questionable foul calls while absorbing significant contact on the other end without getting the same whistle. Whether fair or not, that perception has become one of the most talked about storylines of the year. Because of that, any coaching staff preparing for a game should recognize the possibility that a critical foul call against Clark may need to be reviewed at some point. That makes challenge management incredibly important. In a perfect scenario, you hold on to that challenge for a high-impact moment involving your star player, especially when foul trouble could dramatically alter the flow of the game. The expectation would be to preserve that valuable resource rather than use it early on a relatively minor situation involving a supporting player. After all, protecting the player who drives the offense and influences every possession is a fundamental part of game management. Yet critics argue that Stephanie White has repeatedly taken the opposite approach, creating situations where the Fever no longer have a challenge available when the stakes are at their highest and the game hangs in the balance.
This play pulled up for y'all. This
still goes against Caitlin Clark. What are these refs even watching right now?
Look, yep.
Canada slips and hits the floor, but the whistle.
So that was this play right here. Now Caitlin Clark is storming, telling Stephanie she's yelling. She's definitely yelling at Stephanie and them to challenge the play. To me, based on the evidence, based on everything that has happened this season, by them not challenging Caitlin plays.
Looking back over the entire season, one question continues to surface among Fever fans and analysts alike. How often has Stephanie White actually used a coach's challenge to overturn a foul called against Caitlin Clark? Critics argue that those opportunities have been surprisingly rare, despite several controversial whistles that placed Clark in foul trouble during key moments. What makes the discussion even more intense is the visible reaction from Clark herself. Time and time again, cameras have captured her walking toward the bench, pointing at the replay screen, explaining her side of the play, and urging the coaching staff to take a closer look. Those moments have become increasingly noticeable as the season has progressed. For many observers, the frustration isn't centered on a single missed challenge, but on what appears to be a recurring pattern of hesitation whenever a review could directly benefit the team's franchise player. Whether it's a questionable foul, a critical possession, or a momentum-shifting sequence, fans continue to point to these sideline interactions as evidence of a growing disconnect. As more of these clips circulate and receive attention, the debate surrounding Stephanie White's challenge decisions has only become louder, with many wondering why so many opportunities to support Clark seem to pass without action.
Just when it comes to Clark, specifically not using her coach's challenges on fouls called against the star point guard. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Stephanie White has ever used a challenge on one of Caitlin Clark's challenges this entire season. I don't think she used one specifically for a Caitlin foul. Goes on to say, this stood out in the team's loss against Atlanta Dream. One that saw Caitlin Clark have to sit for a stretch in the fourth quarter due to foul trouble. There was a clear instance toward the end of the first half where White should have challenged a foul against Caitlin Clark with 52 seconds left. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken,
the frustration only grew after the Alicia Grace sequence unfolded. From Caitlin Clark's perspective, the play appeared straightforward, and she seemed convinced immediately that the foul call was incorrect. As soon as the whistle blew, she headed directly towards Stephanie White, looking for a challenge that could potentially erase a costly foul from her record. If you focus on the interaction itself, many fans have pointed to White's reaction and body language as particularly telling. There appeared to be little discussion or deliberation, and the possibility of a review seemed to disappear almost as quickly as it was raised. What Clark may not have fully realized in that moment was that the Fever no longer had a challenge available. Earlier in the game, that opportunity had already been used on a review involving Sophie Cunningham, leaving the coaching staff without a safety net when a far more consequential situation emerged later on. As a result, when Clark turned to the bench seeking support on a play that could have significantly impacted the remainder of the game, there was no challenge left to use. For critics of the decision, that's what makes the sequence so difficult to overlook. The issue wasn't simply the foul call itself, but the fact that when the team's biggest star needed a potential review the most, the resource that could have helped her had already been spent, leaving Indiana with no way to contest the moment.
Fighting back towards Caitlin by not challenging her plays, putting her in bad situations, taking her on the ball, off the ball, using Kelsey Mitchell, running it with Kelsey Mitchell, and that could be a strong reason as to why they're not challenging the plays, man. There's no other reason. Caitlin Clark wants out of Indy, and the Indy front office knows it. I am 100% convinced. You can't sit up here and tell me that if your star player on any level of sports, and you got a chance to challenge a play, and you don't challenge that play against the best player on your team, you don't like the best player on your team, and you want them in foul trouble. You don't want them in the game. That's the only answer. Stephanie White, the front office, don't want Caitlin in the game because Caitlin don't want to be in Indiana. That's the only explanation I can think of. Get down in the comment section right now. Let me know your thoughts about this. Keep them bells on, and until next.
At this point, the questions surrounding Indiana's decision-making have only become louder. Fans continue to wonder why situations like this seem to repeat themselves, and why the team's most important player repeatedly finds herself dealing with crucial moments without the support many believe she deserves. From a basketball perspective, critics point to Stephanie White's challenge management, rotation choices, and several in-game decisions that have sparked debate throughout the season. There have been multiple occasions where observers felt the Fever could have handled key situations differently, leading some to question whether certain strategic choices have cost the team opportunities to win close games. That explanation alone could account for many of the frustrations surrounding the season. However, others believe the issue goes beyond simple coaching mistakes and have started speculating about larger organizational dynamics behind the scenes. While there is no verified evidence of contract disputes, trade requests, or disagreements regarding Caitlin Clark's long-term future with the franchise, the continued speculation reflects how unusual many fans find the current situation. When people struggle to understand a pattern of decisions, they naturally begin searching for deeper explanations. What remains undeniable is that Clark is the centerpiece of the franchise, and every coaching decision involving her receives intense scrutiny. Whether it's challenge usage, foul trouble management, or offensive play calling, each choice is examined through that lens. Some observers have also noted stretches where the offense appears to place greater responsibility on other players, such as Kelsey Mitchell, rather than consistently running through Clark's playmaking abilities. Whether that reflects a deliberate strategic adjustment, matchup-based coaching, or a broader philosophy is open to interpretation. What is clear is that the ongoing debate has shifted beyond individual plays and now centers on whether the Fever are maximizing the impact of the player who has become the face of both the franchise and much of the league's growing popularity. What has intensified the debate even further is the growing perception among many fans and analysts that Caitlin Clark's role within the Fever offense has fluctuated at times despite her status as the team's most impactful, marketable, and recognizable player. When a player of Clark's caliber appears to have the ball in her hands less often, or when the offense seems to run through other options during crucial stretches, questions are naturally going to follow. Supporters look at her ability to create shots, generate assists, stretch defenses with her shooting range, and completely change the pace of a game, then wonder why she isn't consistently being placed at the center of every offensive possession. Whether those strategic adjustments are matchup-based, coaching decisions, or part of a larger team philosophy, they have become a major source of discussion throughout the season. For critics of the coaching staff, the challenge decisions have become the most visible symbol of those concerns. They point to repeated situations where Clark appears to receive questionable foul calls, immediately looks toward the bench for support, and asks the coaching staff to consider a review, only for the game to continue without one. Fans have noticed these moments over and over again, and each new incident adds fuel to an already heated conversation. Even if every decision not to challenge can be defended individually, many supporters argue that the overall pattern is what stands out. When similar situations continue to occur and the outcome remains the same, people inevitably begin questioning whether enough is being done to protect the team's franchise player during critical moments. The unfortunate reality is that this controversy affects everyone involved. It affects Clark as she attempts to lead the team through high-pressure situations while navigating foul trouble and constant scrutiny. It affects the Fever because close games that should be remembered for basketball often become dominated by discussions about coaching decisions and officiating. It affects teammates as well, because the attention shifts away from team performance and toward off-court narratives. Most importantly, it affects the fans who spend their time and money supporting the team, only to watch debates about challenges, rotations, and foul management overshadow the actual game itself. The situation also fuels broader conversations around the WNBA because Clark remains one of the league's biggest attractions and most talked about athletes. Every Fever game generates national attention, and every controversial moment involving Clark quickly spreads across social media, sports shows, and fan communities. Whether people agree with the criticism or not, there is no denying that her presence has brought unprecedented visibility to the league. Because of that, decisions involving her are analyzed far more closely than those involving most players. What might normally be viewed as a routine coaching choice suddenly becomes a major storyline when it involves one of the sport's biggest stars. Ultimately, the biggest concern for many observers isn't a single foul call, a single challenge decision, or even one particular game. It's the growing perception that there may be a disconnect between the team's most important player and the people responsible for managing the game from the sidelines. In professional sports, trust between a coach and a franchise cornerstone is one of the most valuable assets an organization can have. Players need to believe their coaches support them in critical moments, and coaches need players to trust the decisions being made under pressure. When fans begin questioning whether that trust is fully intact, every interaction becomes magnified and every controversial moment receives even greater scrutiny. Another reason this discussion continues to gain momentum is because expectations surrounding Clark are unlike anything the WNBA has experienced in recent years. She isn't just expected to perform at a high level, she's expected to elevate an entire franchise. That level of responsibility naturally creates pressure, and with pressure comes criticism whenever things don't go according to plan. Fair or unfair, many supporters believe that a player carrying that kind of burden should receive every possible advantage available within the rules, including strategic challenge usage when questionable calls arise. As the season continues, the focus will likely remain on whether the Fever can quiet these concerns through stronger communication, better execution, and more consistent results on the court. Winning has a way of solving many problems, but unanswered questions tend to linger when frustrations continue to build. Fans will be watching closely to see whether future situations are handled differently and whether the coaching staff adjusts its approach in moments that directly impact Clark's availability and effectiveness. The discussion is far from over, and supporters will continue analyzing every game, every challenge decision, and every coaching choice involving the team's biggest star. Until the Fever provide clearer answers through their actions on the court, the debate surrounding Caitlin Clark's role, her relationship with the coaching staff, and the team's overall direction is likely to remain one of the most talked about storylines surrounding the franchise.